I don't know.
I mean, besides murder as well.
Right, besides murder as well.
I don't feel like people are surprised when they see
They were
her
like,
that.
murder?
I feel like that makes sense. Look at her.
Right, exactly. All of the things that I was thinking, I was like, well, I was a horse girl in high school. That makes sense. No, went through a real big, like, weird, lanky dude phase. No, that makes sense. I knit as well. I paint.
What do you paint?
Right now, it's naked ladies.
Fun. What do you use for painting?
Watercolors.
Ooh la la.
I love using oil paints, but it's expensive and messy, and I don't have the space just yet. But
I literally was thinking that you did oil, and I was like, watercolors.
Watercolors a lot easier and a lot more accessible.
What are your favorite colors to use? Like, do you have ones? I mean, you should be able to see like which ones you're using the most of.
I use a lot of actually the color of my hair,
Nice.
and a lot of. Right now, I've been doing a lot of oranges and browns because I'm not used to using them, so I'm trying to get used to seeing that color tone a little bit more often.
I would say what surprised me about you is that you worked with kids.
Oh yeah, I guess
I think that's a little surprising. Not that like,
it is. It does surprise people how well I do with children.
Yeah.
I'm a little quick to the violence here. So, so when I tell them I'm wonderful with tiny humans, that they're like.
That's hilarious. Wes, do you want to ask a question? To
I do. I want to ask a question.
Let's direct it to someone.
Oh my God! This is. I randomly clicked out the card you asked last week.
Oh.
Right?
I love this card though.
I know it's a good one. Oh. If you could instantly attain 3 skills, what would they be?
Who has this too? This card reminds me of Zach, but yeah, who else this too?
Freddie.
3 skills.
Yeah. Instantly attain. Think of like Neo and the Matrix, and they just upload. What?
Woo!
Okay.
Yeah, that is, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, now we're off topic.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm not happy about it either.
A skill I want for you is to be able to watch the Matrix.
Right.
I would say the ability to have any language.
Ooh, nice.
That's good. That's good. Yes, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Ability to hack anything. I would be a good hacker. What would be the last one? Like any skill? Like
Yeah, it's your
would it be
choice.
like a skill or a superpower?
Whatever you call it.
I guess heal well because I can't come to Woody's and be hungover from like 3 drinks. So I need to be able to heal from my hangovers.
That part.
Right? Yeah.
Mine was also all of the languages.
Yes.
Play any instrument.
Ooh.
And be able to travel whenever I want, wherever I want.
Yeah. That would be nice.
I really like this question. I still want to ask it.
Yeah, ask it. I mean, I think it's a good question too.
I'm gonna direct it to you, but you can't use the answer.
Oh, but it's the truth.
I know.
It's like, so you want me to lie?
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you first, Freddie. The question is, what? No. What lie have you told so much that you now believe it?
Shit. What lie have I told myself?
You know, this really is like therapy. That was
I
too
know.
It is. These are great cards.
No, go ahead and tell them your answer because it makes it like less like clinical because it's fun.
Oh, okay.
What lie have you
So-
told so many times that now you believe it?
So one of the lies that I've told myself so many times that I believe it is that I've been to a Katy Perry concert. I've never been to a Katy Perry concert, ever.
Tell them why that you lied about this.
I've seen the movie in theater
So many times.
and I own the Blu-ray and the separate DVD for the Katy Perry movie, and I've watched them so many times that I had to buy another one because the DVD messed up. And so, because of that, I think, like, when I think back to the concerts or someone mentions Katy Perry, I flash to an image of, like, her in concert, and I think, oh, yeah, I remember that.
I've been there.
Yeah, and I'm like, I've never seeing her in concert.
I'm seeing you in a whole new
I
level.
was like, wow.
So much for his husband's like, West, you've never been
Yeah,
to
he's like, no, you haven't been. Yeah.
That's not real. Stop lying.
When I was telling Chris about this last week. So the continuation of that story. Katy Perry was in town, and Chris had me leave work early so that I could meet him. And I thought we were, going to go see Katy Perry like it was a surprise. He took me to a concert the same night as Katy Perry, but it was a folk country music band.
I would file for divorce.
And
How very dare you?
How very dare you? And I wasn't feeling 100%. And I was like, Katy Perry's gonna heal me, and I'm gonna feel so much better.
Oh no.
And so I'm standing there. And
So to live with that sickness all through a folk concert?
no, I didn't even stay.
I can't even do this. You don't even know me.
Wow.
Who did I marry?
He was like, I didn't even know Katy Perry was in town. I was like, I gotta go. I can't be here.
I gotta find her. Where's my Katy Perry tracking up? Because we're best friends because I go to all the concerts.
He's got a fake contact in this phone.
Oh.
I know.
Wow.
Well, Jessica, while Freddie's thinking, let's ask you, what lie have you told so much that you now believe it?
I finished most of the books on my bookshelf.
That is such a good one. Yeah.
I've not finished.
So I haven't read like even half of them. Like,
Right. It's just I like having the physical thing in front of me,
Yeah.
and so I buy them, and then
do people come over?
yeah,
And are people like, oh, is this book good? And then you're like, oh my god, it's so good.
Then
Like,
I immediately refer to one that I have read multiple times so that I can
so it's
feel like I'm a little bit smarter than I am.
And you're not
just
like a super liar.
Right. I'm like, yeah, that one's great, but like, have you seen this one? This one is phenomenal.
Charlotte's Web, I've read this twice.
The children's book my mother read to me, I didn't even read
I still didn't even read
Those
it.
are on my bookshelf. Yeah.
I really can't tell.
That's
I'm very honest and frank to people about what I can and can't do. Because I'm like, okay, if I come in here and say I lie, I would have that look that someone would be like, really? And then I would find that expert. And I'm like,
you have to remember, this is a lie that you tell yourself. Not that you tell other people, but
I'm
you tell
pretty
yourself.
honest to myself because I'm like, okay, Freddie, you can't do this shit. why are you doing this to yourself? I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to take this L. So I give myself L's because I'm like, okay, I'm being on be frank. I want to take this L. But if I have to say the lie, the bookcase, because I have a crap ton of books. And I was like, oh my God, you read all of them? I was like, pretty honest, no, I have some of these from friends. I'm still reading this one from like 4 years ago. But
Your inner monologue sounds like what my therapist has been trying to get me to for years.
yeah, I have a deep,
Just not made it there
inner
yet.
monologue.
Hold yourself
It's really
accountable.
sad.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's torture
What?
at the exact same
That's why I
time.
have friends.
It's so torturous. Don't have an inner monologue, y'all. Don't do it.
Well, we are live, so I want to take a minute to do some introductions. I'm Wes with KC Care, and I'm joined by...
I'm Ace with Woody's KC, and we have...
Freddie, I'm here from Planet Fitness pretty much right now.
Yeah.
I'm Jessica. I'm the trainer at FedEx.
Yes! Look at the ranges.
Come through.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking today about sex. Like what sex is like, how you engage in sex, what you're comfortable talking about sex. Just, oh man, I forgot my demonstrator. I went to work and I totally forgot it. How to spell it, how to do it. We're going to demonstrate it. No, I'm just kidding.
So anyway.
So we're going to be talking, we want to focus on lesbian sex and transgender sex and talk about what that's like, And as we build that up, feel comfortable to share and let us know what you're not comfortable talking about as well. And same thing for our viewers. Like, comment, ask questions. We're ready to engage with y'all as well.
Yeah, I want to start off by asking a question first.
Yeah, do it.
This is open to whoever wants to jump in first. Sex. Let's talk about sex. What is sex and what constitutes sex? Because I know, like, growing up Catholic, we're just like, front hole, booty hole, hand jobs, blow jobs. Like, those aren't real sex. It has to be, like, actual, like, baby making sex. But also, being a young queer person, I never did it for procreation. I always did it for fun. So was that sex? Am I still going to hell? Oh, the whole gay thing though.
It's a gay thing.
So what do we think is sex? What is your definition of sex, Jessica?
I think as I've gotten older, especially having sex with women or somebody that's not on the gender spectrum, it's kind of when you're done being intimate, if it feels like you had sex, then you probably had sex. There was really no hard and fast black and white definition.
Okay.
I know when I had sex with men, it was very cut and dry. If there was no penis and vagina, there was no sex. Once I entered like the queer community, there was never really a black and white answer. And as I've gotten older, it's become even more vague. But that's also from my experience, like between each individual person. For me, there's no black and white answer. It's just, yeah, no, we had sex, and then sometimes that didn't really.
So are we doing like the Bill Clinton definition of sex, or?
Well, I think we're just trying to
intimate relations.
No, we're just trying to define it between each, like all of us. I mean, I feel like everybody has their definition of what it is. What is your definition?
I mean, to me, it's like any intimate action that goes beyond like the hugging and kissing. Just because from there it literally can go everywhere. Of course, consent is still a big part of the game with that. So as long as everyone's consenting, it's all good. But I do consider blowjob, anal, whatever, have it.
Hand jobs.
Yeah, hand jobs, even hand jobs. Because I'm like, if we have to take off a part of our clothing and reveal whatever, then I'm like, okay, at that point, it's become sex. Like, but me with my partners, most of them are male identified. Of course, with them it's very cut and dry.
Yeah.
But to me, because I'm defining it, I'm like, okay, even if you get a blowjob, it's sex. I'm like, you're just gonna have to deal with that.
Yeah.
What about you, Wes?
I am very clinical by the book when it's like, what is sex? I'm like, if you're one, consent, and two, it's anything orally, anally, vaginally, including a hand job, like that's sex. Like rimming is part of sex. Like that's the foreplay aspect of it. So that's
still a sexual act.
Still a sexual act. You're still engaging in it. I'm like, if you can get an STD from it, it's probably sex.
That part.
I wanted to touch a little bit about what you said. I think ask a little bit about what sex is, but I think let me try to word this. I had it in my head just a second ago. I guess defining sometimes sex, sometimes not sex, but like orgasm. I mean, like there could be a physical orgasm, but what if you have an emotional orgasm? Is that still sex? Or maybe there wasn't penetration, or maybe there wasn't huge genital stimulation, but you still had some kind of euphoric orgasm emotionally. Does that still count, or does it have to be a physical release? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean,
what are your thoughts?
I would consider it sex, just because, like you said, I'm defining it, and that's just as intimate as any kind of penetrative or sexual act. It's just, if not more so, intimate, and sex is really just some form of intimacy and trusting yourself with somebody else, especially, having a conversation of consent, starting that segue into it. I would absolutely say it's part of it.
Yeah. When you're talking about having that conversation, I always like to touch on, you're talking about consent. It's really important to have consent. And this is something that I wondered, especially for lesbians, because we test so many male identifying individuals that we don't really test a lot of women identifying when it comes to STDs. They don't, I would say majority of the people that come in that I've tested are male, or identified as male. So when you have that conversation, do y'all talk about STDs? And when I say y'all, I say lesbians. Do you engage in that, ask about HIV and STI exposure?
Or do you just go straight to kissing on a patio on the U-Haul movie?
And then strumming your pants?
Super stereotyped. Let's talk about these things.
I did up my stock in U-Haul, but When I was younger, absolutely not.
Really?
There was very little to no conversation, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that the sex education system really just like is heavily inputted on. There has to be a penis and a vagina involved, and that's almost always how an STD is going to be transferred to another person. I just don't think that lesbians or even just people with vaginas really think about it. I don't think that it's the first forethought when you're really young.
Mm-hmm.
When I got older, especially when I became more promiscuous, then I would have conversations, but I don't think I had one conversation when I was younger.
Do you feel like now you're the one who brings it up, or is your partner, the person you're engaging with, bringing it up? Like,
I think it goes hand in hand. If it gets to that point and it hasn't been brought up, then I will. But typically, I mean, lesbians have stereotypes for a reason. We overshare. It's you usually
It's like I want to know your entire life story.
Right. Like there's usually a conversation even without having to like just outright ask when's the last time you've been tested. It's usually brought up.
okay.
Or like how many partners have you had? Like that's usually how many of them am I going to see at U-Haul? How many of them am I going to see at Woody's on
How long are you going to be there? What time are you coming?
I mean,
Man, it's like I don't think I've ever asked a guy that I'm hooking up with how many people he's with.
How many people?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever done that. Like,
I
how
think
many
it's
people
because you don't want to know.
Well, I would like to know. Thinking, I'm like, well, I don't know what my number would be, but I stopped counting in 2006.
2006 or in 2006?
In 2006, but I was already in a high digit. I will not tell you how.
But does that make a difference? Does that? I mean, would that? I mean, like, okay, so let's since we're talking to Jessica first for a little bit, I want to talk about from that girl experience, from that female identity, from that lesbian experience. Like, does a number make a difference, and would it make a difference to you? And has that changed since maybe you were young to like the age that you are now? I feel like American culture has kind of brought us to like that slut shaming, the body shaming, all these things where it's like, we cover up private parts and we let men take off shirts, but women can't have their breasts out. We let I don't know, like little kids like walk around like babies or whatever and just like their little boy like shorts, but girls even at little ages we have to have a top even though they haven't even developed breasts. It's kind of that whole body shaming
even
thing.
Breastfeeding, like that just sexualized. Like you can't even feed your baby. Like,
right.
So I mean, like in Haas, like what do you think? Like does that number make a difference?
I think when I would ask when I was younger, it was more stemming from insecurity and
On what end?
My insecurity of feeling like I'm not going to be enough because that person may be more experienced or they're not experienced at all. And then what if I'm not either? What if I don't know what I'm doing? And then when I got older, honestly, it just became because I was nosy.
Like you were more secure in yourself.
Yeah, I didn't really, like the number meant
But
very
did it
little.
change your perspective of that person? Like when they said, hey, I'm super into you and like we're engaging and we are currently, whatever, but also like just to let you know, you've slept with a handful and I've slept with 50 handfuls. Like with that.
Personally, it didn't make a difference because you should have been tested regardless of if you've had one or if you've had 100. So that never made a difference. And I don't care how many you have, especially because I don't want you to care how many I have. I'm just really nosy, and I like to know things about other people.
Yeah.
And I've got the card stock in the back of my head, just keeping note.
Ready to pull this out.
On your card stock, do you have a propensity to have a higher number than the partners you engage with?
Yes.
Ooh, that's fun.
Yes.
Yeah, because your number's always going to go up. That's good.
Right. unless you abide by the rule, like you just go back to the same people, and then your number doesn't have to go up.
Right. I don't. Yeah. Oh, that's a good. Yeah. Do you count repeat offenders? Yeah.
I don't.
I don't. Yeah.
I was like, it's the same person.
No, thank you. No.
I guess I want to talk. I guess Freddie, let's direct the question a little bit to you. Like, does that number does that mean something to you? Does that stray you in a certain way or another if you find out somebody's had a handful or multiple handfuls? Is that something that you look at?
Not really. And it's weird because I'm
always across the board, like from like the beginning, or like has that shifted over your age?
I think it's all of it. I mean, I never, as long as the person respected my boundaries, and I was pretty a late bloomer in the sex game anyway, so I was like, okay, I'm already gonna lose this battle before we get into it. So this number battle, I'm like, it's not gonna be it.
Well, I mean, some people play catch up. I mean,
well, I mean, as an aspiring thought, yes, I'm trying to play catch up. But I mean, as far as the numbers go, I mean, it doesn't really matter because, you know, as far as testing goes, sometimes you just have that one partner and, you know, now your life has changed. And it doesn't matter if you had 100 or 1, it just takes that one. But as far as, you know, from, you know, being promiscuous, especially within, you know, the gay male scene, it's seen in a different light than being a cis woman. And, you know, now I'm a trans man walking in that, you know, Tinder, Grindr, you know, scene, or Scruff, or whatever you have it. It's different, you know. Everyone's hooking up. No one really knows who they're hooking up with because you got people from out of town now. So now you're able to hook up with people not even from Kansas City. So, you know, as far as numbers go, I think everyone's numbers might be just all over the place.
Were you engaging in sex before you were trans?
Yes.
Was it with men or women?
Mostly men.
And has that sex changed?
For me, no.
Okay.
Just because I still have my original plumbing, as they call it. And I mean, and I think that's something for trans men. You know, a lot of people. It's weird because my picture on Grindr looks like me, looks fabulous, but everyone thinks I'm a top, and I was like, "Whew, this is gonna be a very awkward conversation right now." I was like, "I can get one. I have to bring it along, but it's not here." And it's very much the same, you know, and everyone, it gets really weird on Grindr. Because you have people that think you're top, and then you have people who like, oh, you're trans man, so that means you have pussy. And I was like, we're having to a good morning, or, you know, what am I doing?
Right.
You know, I'm like, shit.
That's aggressive.
I was like,
right out of the gate.
I just put my bacon in the frying pan.
Is that a euphemism?
I was like,
It's not ready.
That's your bacon.
I wasn't ready. I was ready. So for me, it's very much the same, but now, you know, testing is still that important.
I think I was a little bit more asking, I mean, maybe you can answer this too, like, so before you transition, I mean, men across the board, I feel like, being like male, cis male presenting, even having sex with other men, I feel like we're just taught so differently in like our culture and everything, but also like, I guess I've never had it from a perspective of a female having sex with a straight man and then a queer person having sex with a male. And I feel like, I mean, are straight men the same as gay men? Like, in my opinion, like, because I don't like mess around with straight men, but I also think that like queer boys, like in my experience, have like been very more anonymous, flagrant, multiple partners, disengaged. It's all about the orgasm and it's all about that. And I know that there's probably straight men. Was your experience sexually with straight men or before you were trans having sex different than being a trans man with males? All the males the same to you?
All the males, I mean, men are pretty simple, and that's what I have to say. Men are pretty simple. You know, it's very much the same. You know, going after the orgasm or the experience itself. So I mean, I really didn't notice any difference. I mean, you know, especially with the DL culture, you know, you might end up having a guy that you think is straight, and then they're out here, you know, being either bi or gay. You know, not outing anyone, but just, you know, just saying what it is. So I haven't noticed any difference because I was like, these are half the guys that probably would hit me up at, you know, Westport back when I was just, you know, my former self. So I really haven't noticed any difference.
Has your sexual practices changed since before your transition into now? Is it changed because of that? Has it changed because maybe you've gotten older, maybe you've become more educated, or
I think
has it always been the same?
I think I actually got more confident. So it's almost very similar to you. I think a lot of sex that people don't talk about is about that confidence. Because when you have that confidence, you're able to have those boundaries and be like, okay, I'm willing to do this. I'm willing not to do this. Now I always kept those boundaries very tight because my former history. But I think now being myself, my authentic self, now I'm able to really place those boundaries. Now I'm like, okay, I get to really pick who gets to be in my intimate space,
Yeah.
you know, versus just like, oh, well, you know, he's taking me. I'm more like, you know what, you're not with it. Bye. Next one.
Jessica, do you think that confidence for you has come from being more your authentic self as you've gotten older, or has it come from having more experience and more partners?
I think when I detached sex from emotional intelligence, it helped me grow a lot. This is my personal experience, but I mean, sexual trauma is a significant thing in my history, so sex became very unimportant very quickly, and so promiscuity was a way to feel a little bit more empowered, and also for me to not rely on an emotional relationship to feel better about myself. And it was still, you know, like I get to have intimacy with somebody, but also I just need to figure out that I'm good enough to do whatever the fuck I want and be whoever the fuck I want. And that didn't come until like much later in my life. They're two different worlds for me. Sex has always been a little bit less important, but that's my own personal history. And the confidence just came a lot later. It was a lot of growth. Now, I mean, you've seen it. The last couple of years, it's grown tremendously. And I think a lot of that has to do with being able to be a little bit more promiscuous and not feeling like I'm not going to be good enough. Like, okay, well, chemistry wasn't there. That's fine. Moving on. There's 10 other people I could talk to. It's fine.
Damn, she got it like that. 20.
She's like test driving cars.
I did have a parent in high school. Her mom did compare it to test driving cars.
Yeah, that's how I've always
She ended up marrying, her daughter ironically married her high school boyfriend.
Was it a Kia or was it a Rolls Royce?
Or is it a Buick LeSabre?
It's a hybrid.
He's got a back.
It is both. Opening our relationship.
High school, they were all beater cut.
Oh my.
The little label had fallen off.
Sometimes those are fun for a little joyride.
I didn't steal it. I'm just borrowing it. So I have a two-part question for both of you, really. So you, Freddie, earlier you had mentioned like someone refers to you as a, you know, oh, you're a top. And so the first part is, you know, how do you identify in your relationships as top and bottom or, you know, top or bottom? And then the second part to that is you told the person, well, I can bring it with me. And so, like, to let the viewers know, like, what you're talking about is, like, adding a dildo or some other insertive device.
Hi, I'm here for...
I was like, I almost threw my back out. I was like, I know it's heavy. So, do you present yourself?
I am a bottom, and if the spouses would allow, we would, in order to keep the romance alive.
At all times.
At all times. Until we're done. You need to leave. Run away. But I think it's more of a running joke. Just asking if you're a top or a bottom.
Yeah. Freddie, what
That's
about you?
interesting because I mean I see myself sexually as a bottom, but I understand sex has a mental part to it, and I feel I'm more versatile in that aspect. But it's so weird because, you know, especially within the gay scene, you know, Grindr has the top label, the first label, and then the bottom label, which no one ever reads, obviously.
I tried
I was like, no one reads profiles.
No,
No
it's
one
not
does.
a
Yeah, they don't like, they don't distinguish what they do. I'm like, can I put reverse? Like, I don't know.
Well, they have like verse top and verse bottom, and I was like,
Yeah.
what the fuck are these terms? Like, and that's when I first became like introduced to Grindr. I was an innocent soul, and then I got my first dick pic, and I was like shocked, and I was like,
I framed
my
it.
innocence. I was like,
had mine,
I cannot
you know?
believe this. I am assaulted right now, and then I
Badge
literally
under girl
like I was like, I was going to be a thought, and then I took off Grindr, and I was like, you know what, give it one more try. Now I'm a mini thought. But But as far as like being a bottom, and I think in the past everyone was like, I'm going to be a top. You know, especially within my group of friends, you know, being a bottom wasn't something that everyone was like, you're just a bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that goes sort of back to, you know, the whole dominance thing. But
I think it goes back to a lot of like sexist and misogyny. I think like even like as a gay man, like I feel like, you know, that's kind of something like even Caddy was like, oh well, you're just a bottom. Like that's lesser. Like being docile or being bottom.
The receptive partner.
Yeah, but also like equates it to like being feminine, which also is like what's wrong with being a female.
Yeah.
Also, consider the simple fact that I'm very much in control and have control issues in just about every other aspect of my life. When it comes to sex, I have none, and I'm not 100% sure where that stems from, but I'm just like, no, are you going to tell me what to do, or are we going to just stare at each other? Because I've got somewhere to be.
It's just, why are you like joking and like making somebody shameful for like expressing like what gives them pleasure? Like, there's so many few things in our life right now that give us pleasure. If somebody wants to like get their fucking hole knocked out and be a bottom, let them have that pleasure.
Right.
The world's on fire. Let them, like, don't shame them for that. Like, get it. Fucking bottom yourself out. Do it.
The shirt, I would bottom you so hard.
I bottom myself so hard. Self-love.
So, yeah.
Because always.
But it's
Just like me.
I always found it intriguing, though, especially as putting myself within the gay male scene, is seeing those people, those men that bottom, bash bottoms, and I'm like, but you're looking for a person to bottom.
I was gonna say, but you don't want another top, so why are we upset? Like, if it's supposed to be like a puzzle situation, I'm not understanding where the upset is coming from.
Do you want someone to bang or not? I'm like, I'm lost. So I mean, there's still some things that I'm still learning about. So there's things that I'm learning about the gay male scene specifically.
Oh my goodness, same.
Does numbers matter in the gay male scene?
I don't think that's something that we really talk about.
I think inches matter.
Yes. 100%.
They do.
But not numbers.
Not numbers. I think everybody kind of like, especially if you're on like those apps, I think people just automatically assume like you're up there. So it's like as long as we
But then at the same time, men and women, the numbers in our society
are
viewed differently. Men are expected to have.
I was gonna say, cis straight men that I've slept with, it's hot, really?
like fist bumps and high fives to each other, but like to a girl.
Yeah,
like shocked.
But you know that the girl had to be present for your number.
Displayed in the stats.
The questionnaire
Forms or their profiles. Are you able to notice that trans men?
I can ask Johnny, our coordinator, and we count all of that. Like, well, that's part of our data for like grants and funding sources.
number look like? Not from your end, but I mean from your end. I mean, living in a female identified before COVID. Woody's paired up with the Him Project, and I think every fourth Friday of the month we did free HIV testing here. The free prophylactics at the front, even though we've had female condoms and stuff. I don't know if I've ever seen a girl grab any of those. I've seen straight girls grab them. But like, so what does that look like? I mean, does your community, is it because maybe, do you have specific health care providers that you go to that you talk amongst? Like, you have that conversation, obviously, but like, where do they, is it like a monthly thing? Is it like after, I mean, maybe it's because you pair up and you're with somebody for, a year or two, where it's like, we're like, I mean, a lot of guys are just fucking like every weekend, different people every night, different people
every day.
So it's like we're testing like every week, something like twice a week. Like, what are we doing here?
I think what most of the women that I've talked to about their testing, they've gotten it done when they're going in for just like the regular gyno checkup,
which would be like twice a year, once a year.
Every 6 months to once a year, unless there's variables within there.
And that's recommended for sexually active.
Yeah.
3 to 6 months to get tested. So
well, and also, I mean, I've been with my partner for Oh fuck! I'm not good at keeping track. She is.
She's probably watching.
She already knows. She reminds me. Like she keeps track of all the dates. I'm
This
terrible.
is our 8th anniversary.
Right. It's like 10 months or something, somewhere along those lines. But like, I'd still go and get tested because HPV pops up. Even people have been married for 15 years and not stepped out to other people, and it's shown up. But my theory is I don't see a lot of women get tested or like purposefully go out to get tested because I still think there's that underlying shame of like, I'm dirty almost. If I do have something, I still think there's a deep-seated amount of shame when it comes to STDs or STIs.
Well, and also too, like, you know, like nowadays those questions are very pointed. Like they definitely ask you like how many people have you engaged in sexual practice with, how many times have you like all this risky behavior? Because I know that even for myself, like sometimes I'm just like, you know, there's like this, you know, 25, 30-year-old like nurse or doctor asking me these very intimate questions. And I'm like, first of all, little boy or little girl, calm down with that.
Right, it does feel really pointed sometimes. I think the last time I went, it was just for like a regular checkup because I didn't have healthcare at the time, but I needed to just get a checkup, and I went ahead and got like the full spectrum of testing just because I was there, and why not? But the questions are I was like.
Well, and I think a part of that is because, like, our culture, you know, and when I'm sitting there sometimes and I'm listening to that, I'm just like, wow, I feel like that's very pointed. But at the same time, I'm like, here I am promoting a show because it shouldn't feel pointed.
Right.
I mean, it should be normalized. And, like, my sexual practices, however small or big or whatever they are, I should never be made to feel shamed about that. And I think, you know, a lot of that's our culture, that's our growing up, that's our, I want to say education, but lack of education within our school systems, within even our communities or whatever. So, like, I shouldn't feel shamed. And the reason I do feel shamed is because of all of those things. So, I mean, we would like to try to normalize it so, like, we don't have to feel that shame. So even different facets of our rainbow don't feel shamed for going in there.
Right. I mean, you can get an STI a number of different ways. It doesn't have to be in the traditional Bible version of sex. And you really just should be getting tested regardless, especially because female condoms, I don't think I've ever interacted with one of those in my entire life. I think I had one friend that she and her partner used one just as a joke, just to see what it would be like. Hated it, and they just like immediately got rid of it.
Yeah.
And so I just get tested.
What about dental dams? Have you ever used a dental dam?
No, not
Freddie,
really.
have you ever used one?
Maybe I don't even floss. So
I don't even. Okay,
I
rarely floss.
Only after eating meat.
It's like meat every night.
But I think it could show the complete lack of involvement or investment in the female or female. I don't want to say female body because I still have my original plumbing. As far as, you know, having our, you know, certain issues within sexual education and sexual health. Because, I mean, even with PrEP, I'm currently on PrEP right now, but you don't really have, you know, too many people talking about trans men getting on PrEP. Or even, you know, cis women or, you know, women in general getting into
Right, I
PrEP.
don't think I've talked to a single woman.
Yeah, and, you know,
that's talked about being on PrEP.
And most of the advertising or even, you know, the agenda is towards gay men, which is rightfully so. But maybe we need to think about opening up that avenue for, you know, everyone along the gender spectrum, as HIV and AIDS and, you know, STIs, they affect everyone regardless on our gender.
Well, especially when gender is becoming so moot now. I mean, really, it's half the time you don't really ask anymore because it doesn't really matter. Everything is so meshed together and separated at the same time. It's one big melting pot. Oh, God, I hate that because it reminds me of history class. But it's just, it doesn't really matter anymore. And so the conversations need to be less binary. And the pitch and the advertisements need to be way less binary. I mean, again, I don't think I've met a single woman or cis woman, I should say, that's talked about being on PrEP or even thought maybe I should be on PrEP. But everyone can get HIV. There's no like certain specific individual.
Yeah, it doesn't. HIV doesn't, like any virus, does not care
Right.
about your race, gender, socioeconomic status, political, religious ideas, or ideology. All it wants to do is infect and spread.
Right.
That's it.
This is wild.
I know, it's really, matter of fact.
Oh, I wish there was a vaccination.
I posted this a couple of days ago. If you scroll down to Unboxed feeds, you'll see it. Like, Moderna is, because of the science used to make the COVID vaccine, they were able to push forward, and they're working on 3 different vaccines now. One for HIV, another one for a fatal lung disease that you can get.
The other one for heterosexuality.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember what the third one was for, but it's really important that, and they're moving into clinical trials, so that's huge. That means they already are like leaps and bounds and ready to start their clinical trial process. So that's really cool that
really is.
there's vaccine progress. I feel like there has been very limited progress in HIV vaccines, so it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out over the next couple of years.
For the timeline that it's had, it really is surprising.
It's since the 80s. Yeah, and we're just now getting to where like the vaccine seems viable.
Right.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about your relationship. You're 8 months strong. You are single.
Single.
So I have a question. Like, do you identify as like a serial single person, or how would you identify? Like, you're waiting for the right person, or do you prefer to be single?
That's weird because I always thought about this. I was like, okay, would I want to be in a relationship with a person?
Mm-hmm.
Because I sort of like doing things on my own time. So I realized if I get in a relationship, I will have to share that time. Which is also another reason why I don't have kids. I was like, I don't have time to share my time with another person. As of right now, I prefer to be single, especially as a person who's seen other people in relationships and it doesn't end great. I was like, you know what? This is why I am single. I don't think there should be, and I think there's always been some sort of shame as far as being single. Because funny enough, my mom outed. She's like, "You're still single? Oh my God." I was like, "Oh my God, not that you're going to out me like this." And she's like, "I don't think you've been dating anyone." I was like, "I don't think it's that important, especially, as my growth is, I prefer to sort of develop on my own and then get in a relationship. I'm like, okay, I got most of my issues together. So when I enter a relationship, I can be more authentic with that partner and not have any baggage that will affect that relationship.
Yeah, that's powerful.
So I would like to have a relationship eventually, whenever it comes. Usually, it comes when I'm not looking for it. That's typically how it works. So I'm like, okay, if I look for it, it won't happen. So I was like, let it just manifest.
I like that. So if anybody's watching, anybody wants to manifest anything for him?
Manifest it.
I don't have my inbox just full.
Right.
Slide into those DMs.
So would you say you identify as like someone who seeks out a relationship and wants to be in a relationship, prefers it, or?
I absolutely love being single. I do find myself in relationships very quickly.
Is it because you, is that like the stereotypical like lesbian thing, or is that you personally?
I think it's just me personally. I've kind of always been that way.
I think I'm that way too. Like if I like somebody, like it progresses quickly.
Right. It just kind of does, and I think things ending are a little less worrisome for me. So if it's not meant to be and it ends, then it's not meant to be and it ends, and I'm right back to where I was. So there's really no big issue. But I mean, as far as my personal growth, I know I wanted to wait a really long time to grow within myself, and then I realized that battle is going to be fought for a very long time. And now I've just obtained the mentality that my growth is my responsibility, regardless of relationship. And I know that's really hard on my girlfriend because she does not quite understand what goes on in my brain, and I am a handful or two to deal with. So, like, trying to manage my own growth while also managing a relationship is deeply difficult for me. But I do find myself in relationships very often. But being single is fun. And I think if you enjoy being single, I don't think that you should try to be in a relationship. I think you should just be single. I know some people try to jump into, like, poly relationships because they think that somehow
So funny.
That's like a mix of the best of both worlds.
It's like double
That's a
dutch.
lot.
That's
That's
so
a
much
lot more
work.
responsibility.
Right?
And
Like, you're
so
gonna
much
make so many people happy.
communication.
Yes.
And like the communication is amplified, and like I tried it once and it was terrible. I was terrible at it. Just be single. Just enjoy the company of others. Be deeply honest with everybody. As long as everybody's on the same page, everybody can have a great time.
Yeah. So I have a question that I've been like sitting on since last week.
Well, get out. Say it. Speak.
I want to know about lesbian bed death. Like,
Yeah, you're asking wrong.
right? I was like,
I do not know anything
I
about this.
googled this. It turns out there's a lesbian rock band that's called Lesbian Bed Death.
I did not know about the band.
Thank you. There are books about lesbian bed death.
Yes.
There are like comic books about this. I
Yes.
was like,
That I believe
what?
entirely.
Like,
I
There's a
guarantee
whole
there's a
world of
therapist
it.
somewhere that just like solely made her millions on
So-
lesbian.
Can we let everybody know first,
She
like, what
did.
lesbian bed death is? I keep saying it wrong. Lesbian bed death.
the book is Slay the Dragon in Lesbian Bed Death. I was like, there's a dragon involved now? Like,
From my understanding and my experience, it's when that like almost honeymoon phase and that longer than a honeymoon phase, but when that intimacy and that sexual attraction that you just like can't take your hands off each other, it essentially dies. And you just kind of fall into this like monotonous, like everyday, like we're best friends. There's still that connection. There's still that intimacy, but
you're not
it's
engaging in the physical.
right. There's just
sexual
the
act.
physical
It's
intimacy
gone.
is kind
It's
of
dead.
It's
It's
not there anymore.
bed.
Yeah, it's fucking dead.
Everything in your bed is dead.
I'm very godfather of you. It's
But they still love each other. They care about each other.
yeah, and then eventually, like if you're self-aware at all, then you kind of identify whether or not that's just like you both kind of just let things die, quite literally, or like the relationship itself is dead, and you probably should move on.
Is that so? Like we are all unaware of this or whatever. You're aware of this. Is this a common thing? Is that something? Is it that is talked about in the lesbian community?
I don't think it's talked about quite as much as it. Like when I was younger and I had just come out and started like dating women, then it was like this, it was like this joke.
Beware.
Yeah.
Dragon.
It was around a campfire, and I was like, "Oh my god, I can't imagine." And then like adulthood hit, and I was like, "Oh fuck!" Trauma pops up, and then like, oh, shit. I'm like, "Oh, it's been 3 months. I'm so sorry." That's on me, boo. No, that's me. That's on me.
And then you look over and it's just like this shaking corpse. I'm like,
She's like,
I'm
"It's
dying.
I have a subscription to sex toys. It's great now. Don't worry about it. I hadn't noticed.
Wait, you can do subscription?
you can do subscription. How's it? What's that?
You could. I assume so.
Adam and Eve. I think it's like a straight thing.
Huh.
Like a bark box or like a.
Adam and Eve has a terrible selection.
That's true.
It's awful.
I'm more of a Mr. S.
So sorry, Mom, if you watched.
Watched you what? Ordered from Adam and Eve?
No, this.
Oh.
She spends a lot of time at home right now, so
Well,
Super
she's
sorry.
in for a treat.
right. Carefully choosing my words. It's a thing, but I don't think it's as big of a deal as you make it.
That's
just,
what I
just
thought,
like
yeah.
anything. I think it's just something that when they used to call everyone like baby dykes and baby gays, when that was
oh my
like
god, I
thing.
haven't heard that forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I still get called Baby Dyke. Or, Bull Dyke.
Full like.
I guess in your relationships, how important is sex for you, Jessica?
Physical sex, very, very little importance.
Emotional sex?
Just like having that emotional intimacy.
What does emotional sex look like to you?
Thank you. I was gonna say.
I think just being able to be vulnerable.
Like shitting with the door open?
Oh my god, no. No.
That's too much.
Yeah, I was like, that's too
Yeah.
intimate. We're
First of all-
gonna close this door.
Don't shit
If the
me!
bathroom door is closed and you knock on it, I'm gonna lash
Wait,
out.
you've been with Chris for what, 10 years?
No, we're 15
15?
plus. Yeah.
You've never pooped with the door open and been like, hey, I'm gonna have a conversation real quick.
No.
Wow, you were such a lady.
Thank
We were
you.
not in the same, like, she was in the living room, and I was in, like, the bathroom around the way, like, around the hallway, and the door was cracked.
So in your relationship,
It'd be only
have
if
you
I don't
ever-
have toilet paper. I'm like, if I don't have toilet paper, that's the only time.
Then I
that
cast it
door's
out of the
open.
TV that they're watching together, like bring you toilet paper. Have you ever been like showering and somebody's come in not like pooped but like peed or brushed their teeth?
Oh, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Never?
I'm in the bathroom and nobody else is in there.
Oh
It's
wow!
like boundaries.
And I feel like you're like being triggered right now. You're kind of very upset and very like no.
Just
I'm
like
like,
the image in his mind was.
yeah, even the images.
And it's weird because like you're
inappropriate for me.
so open about everything. They're like, you will never come into this restroom when I am here. If you like are at a gas station and you have to use the restroom and someone else comes
Oh,
in,
see,
do you
I
freak
freak
out.
out.
Yeah. Okay.
I leave immediately.
Like, someone's in here. They're like, there
No,
are 4
that's
stalls.
it's all about the location. That's a public space, completely different. Completely different.
Your house
I
is
treat
a-
it different.
Your house isn't for both of you, so like,
We have separate bathrooms.
just lesbian bed bath on the way. Separate bathrooms, separate bedrooms, separate pooping schedules.
I actually do not know this pooping schedule. Yeah,
Well,
I would not want to know that either.
15 years.
Yeah, don't need to know it. Yeah,
You do you.
thank you. Yeah, I think there are certain times and places for those, and it has taken me years to be able to just say, you know, I have to go to the bathroom and poop. Like it was always like, I'll be back.
Do you fart in front of each other?
No, I would never ever do that. That's so
Oh, wow.
inappropriate.
It would be very
I feel
uncomfortable
like I farted
a
in
lot
front
of
of
the
you
time.
before.
You have.
Wow.
I don't.
I mean,
look,
they have
that's
like
your
an
thing.
accident.
I wouldn't judge you for it.
I never fart all the time. I'm human. Stuff happens.
Yeah, and I'm like, there are places that are appropriate for it. So farting in the
Like
bathroom.
anytime that it
totally
needs to
fine.
come out is appropriate.
I am
for
not
me.
getting up and walking to the bathroom every time I have to fart. It's not.
Yeah.
Especially in my own home.
No, I pay these bills. I pay
Yeah.
these bills. I'm
I think if you
not doing it.
like, if you live alone, that's the whole space is yours. But if you're in a shared space like a home with other people,
Oh, I pressured my
Yeah.
current girlfriend to fart first, just so that we could break that ice.
oh,
Did she?
Yeah, oh yeah, because I
Now
just
you
kept pressing the
pressured.
issue. I was like, if you don't fucking do it first,
I cannot
I
believe
can't
that I
do
did
it.
not know this about you. But you're so 1950s housewife.
oh, I am with like
Honestly,
bodily functions. I'm like, those are
not surprising.
for a
Not
time and place.
Oh
Yeah.
my.
Wow.
Yeah, time and a place. Anytime that I want to, or any place I want
Right,
to.
exactly.
I'm as free as my hair. Thank you, Gaga. That is so
I would
wild.
have thought Gaga would be a reference to that conversation.
Like,
What? Oh my goodness. I forgot the original question I was asking you. Intimacy. In your relationship.
Was sex
It's such
important
a
for you in
weird
your relationship?
derailing.
I was like,
Now Ace is shook for months.
And now I'm gonna
this is
have to,
gonna
like,
come up every
Every time.
single.
No, I'm gonna wait every time in the morning, and I'm gonna come here, and then I'm just gonna fart every Wednesday morning in front of us, just to like break the ice. Eventually, I'm gonna wear him down.
It's not gonna work.
I'm gonna poop
He's
in
like,
here
I
with
have
the
this
door open.
mask.
Okay,
And I'm gonna try to talk to you.
Lord.
listen.
You can do all of that. Like, I think whatever you feel is
I'm also gonna fart at your house,
that's that's totally fine for
but
you.
only if you're in the
I just
only
know
if
that
you're
I
in the
would
room.
never do that.
Well, thank you for giving me that space.
Yeah.
To like be myself.
You can be yourself around
I
me. It's totally
appreciate
fine. I'm not gonna judge you for it or anything like that. I would.
Freddie, how important is sex for you in your relationship?
Oh, God.
Physical intimacy. If you were to be in a relationship with someone, how important is that for you? The sex aspect, the physical sex.
It's weird because based on my last long-term relationship, like sex was common, but then I noticed if I'm stressed, I'm like I can't have sex. I'm like I need to handle my stress because I don't want to bring that. I mean, granted, people see sex as a great stress relief. For me, I'm like this is a time that we can connect. I'm too stressed to connect with you right now.
I was gonna say,
I
but
need
sex
it.
is mental. If you're
Yeah,
not mentally
mine is more
there,
Yeah.
mental. So I'm like, I'm not here. I can't do it all. Now I can go through the performance of it
The motions.
and the emotions to make you happy, but I'm not really getting any satisfaction. from it.
Yeah.
Emotional is very important for me.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you do need to have that one person that you connect with, and that's the only thing that I sort of wish that I wasn't single is to have that connection with someone, that emotional connection with that person.
Do you think that you can have that without being in an actual physical, intimate
You
relationship?
can, but then there's different levels. So I mean, of course, there's you have your friends and family where you can have that emotional connection, but then it's different when you have your intimate persons. Just because you can sort of let your hair down a little bit more than with your family, a little bit more than with your friends. So I think there's just a little bit of a hierarchy of being vulnerable. And yeah, it's just different levels to it, I guess.
I think sometimes those people actually just randomly come into your life too. Like I've told my current girlfriend, she's not my person, she's my partner. My person is an entirely other human. And my person is one of the people that I can just be 150% myself, be a ball on the floor, and she'll come over and just be like, get the fuck up. I have my person, and then I have my people, and I have my partner. I think you can have as many as you feel suit your life. I don't think that you have to have one specific person to hold all of the things.
And I think that's a lot of pressure for a person to be all.
Oh my God, so much.
Because I don't want to be that one and all. I mean, coming from a manager point of view, there's times where I'm like, I don't want to be the end all be all of these decisions. Sometimes I'm like, shit. Can I give someone my name tag and handle this? And that goes the same for relationships, and you have some of those people that get jealous when their partner finds another person to rely on emotionally. And some people just have to, even myself, I tell people, I'm not going to be everything. I'm for you.
This is broken. Everything is off. But it's so deeply unrealistic to think that one person is just going to hold and house all of those things.
And that's a lot. That's a lot of burden.
That's so much pressure.
Just because of our whole work mode, where it's like we're built to work, we're built to be strong, we're built to not sit in these emotions and kind of work for us. It's like I feel we've all pulled back a little bit now and realized let's work through some trauma. Let's emotionally build ourselves a little bit. Let's start doing our stock into that and filling those reserves.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I think someone that those needs are for yourself, it's too much for one person. I think, like Freddie said, working on yourself and, being comfortable with yourself and spending time with yourself and being able to do that allows you to build a relationship with somebody else. And you can grow together instead of them trying to fix you or you trying to fix them. But it's not going to work. I think, like what you just said, and you're in a relationship and you get out of a relationship, you're like, I had a life before I met you. And I'm still going to have a life after you. And so it's important to remember, you're still you, and to maintain that throughout your relationship and just grow. And I think when you do that, you find a partner that mirrors you and that can create that balance that, you to grow as a person and you help them. I think that's what I have with my partner, and I hope everyone is able to access that and be able to find that within somebody they like.
Yeah, I love this. I feel like you're both different spectrums of maybe not jumping relationship to relationship, but also understanding that thing, but also someone I feel I can relate to this is I'm a person too that I need to take my time. I would love to have a relationship, have that intimacy physically, day to day, week to week, year to year, whatever, but also I know my strengths and weaknesses enough because I've curated those people around me to be like, hey, Ace, take some time, cultivate yourself, figure out your stuff before you engage into the next things.
Well, I want to take this time to thank you both for joining us today and, talking about sex. It's a hard topic for a lot of people to talk about. It's really hard for them to teach in school. So being able to reduce that stigma and just be open and share, and I really appreciate that. Thank you for joining us and for sharing with everybody who's watching, because now it's permanent. It's online.
It's online forever.
Was there anything that you wanted to add before we go, Jessica?
No, thank you for thinking of me and allowing me to give my 2 cents, however that may be perceived. I'm grateful. I agree. Just talk about it more. It's really not as big of a thing as it needs to be. I'm glad I had the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm thankful for being here today as well. Thank you for reaching out. Especially given that within the LGBT community, the L and the T tends to not exist at times. So giving us a space to share our opinions and maybe enlighten a few people. Definitely goes a long way.
Yeah. Thank you guys for both coming. Yeah, definitely want to make sure that we give, a diverse and inclusive perspective, but also, you guys are like two of like my favorite humans in the city, and I think that just
My sister would not be
I
happy to hear that. My sister is
also-
going to be like on Facebook like,
Your sister's also one of my favorite humans, but I feel like you're both people that I've learned a lot from, and you're both people that I think, of all things, like you're very relatable. You're local, you're fun, you're relatable, and I feel like more conversations like this need to happen with people that are relatable and not from a clinical standpoint, and not from a super hyper masculine or white male dominated perspective. And I think it's more important that we have these conversations and give different perspectives. And I think that hopefully that this conversation. You'll take back with your lesbians and talk about like these, talk about lesbian deathbed, but also talk about like what it's like to have to navigate as a female in this world that we're doing, but also as a lesbian, what it's talk about your healthcare and what that looks like, and protecting yourself and being smart about things, and hopefully destigmatizing a lot of the conversation. I think that our world and like the patriarchy has like set upon us as well, and you as well, and I know how difficult it is for myself as a gay man to navigate all of this, but like as a trans man and as someone younger, having to navigate the apps and the relationships and all these things, and
just call me young.
and there isn't, and the thing is like there isn't a handbook, and there isn't one way to do it. And I love your perspective, because I learned stuff from that too that I don't know, and I feel like a lot of other people can relate that it's difficult for all of us. But if we keep these conversations open, communicate, have better sex, have better relationships, whether they're intimate, emotionally, or physically, and that's the real important key for today's conversation.
That's true.
So thank you both so much. Wes, you're amazing.
Oh my gosh,
As
thank
always.
you.
Thank you for this napkin. I hope that we can figure out how to use
I know,
this.
we're going to try those out. I really want to use
I
them.
don't know. Like, it's, the back is weird. If anybody knows how to,
Maybe one of the queens can like
Right there.
Rig it
put a
to, like,
little-
make it.
rig it.
Ooh, I like that. I'm going to end with, remember to get tested, know your status, not just HIV, but for the full STIs. So you can go to the health department, get all of those done for free, schedule your appointment, KCHD. I think, I don't know what their .org is, .com, .gov, whatever that is. And then you can go to KC Care, get an HIV, Hep C, syphilis test for free. So it's important to know where you can access those and how you can get tested and treated. So make sure you check that out. Google wherever you are and find a safety net clinic or a health department near you and know your status.
Woody's will also always be a pickup place if you need to stop in and pick up a safer sex kit. There's packets at the door. If there's not, you can ask one of the bartenders or the staff, and they will definitely get you some of those. We are also a drop off for any houseless human items, clothing, blankets, toiletries, all of those. Feel free to drop them off at any time. Thank you guys again so much for coming.
No, thank you.
If you guys have any questions, or if you have anything that you want to add, please do it in the comments below, and we'll get back to you.
Thanks. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.